is on 6A. The owner of the barn is Diane Munsell and David Munsell, and they are here to introduce our speaker this evening. So without further ado, David used to be one of our board members. We are sorry that he is no longer with us, but we welcome him back tonight. So, David Munsell.
Good evening, all. I'll just make this quick so we can get going with Joe's project here. Joe Diggs was born to a military family in Croix-Chapeau, France, and grew up on Cape Cod, where he now lives and paints. Although he's based on Cape Cod, Joe's work is housed in many private collections on the Cape, nationally and internationally. Joe earned his BFA at Southeastern Massachusetts University, then returned after years of travel and work experience to earn his MFA from the Mass College of Art and Design program at the Fine Arts Works Center in Provincetown, Mass. In January of 2018, Joe was selected to receive a residency at the Vermont Studio Center. During this month-long residency, Joe developed a rich body of work that was displayed in a solo show at the Brattleboro Museum and Art Center in February of 2019. Following this successful show, he traveled to Cuba, participating in an art and cultural exchange which inspired the work for his solo show at the Cotuit Center of the Arts, a tribute to Joe's twin villa, in July 2019. More recently, Joe has exhibited his work at Bank Street College in New York, the Higgins Gallery at the Cape Cod Community College, the Berta Walker Gallery in the Truro Center for the Arts at Castle Hill, and he is currently represented by the Berta Walker Galleries of Provincetown, Mass. And without further ado, Joe Diggs.
Thanks, David. And thank you guys for your patience, and thank you guys all for taking care of this tech issues. Before we get going, I want to say thank you guys, like especially all my old friends from Barnstable High School who showed up. Avery, all of you guys, Tommy, it really means a lot to me. Yeah, we're all old. We're all old at this point. But the beauty of Joe's Twin Villa is that it's got history that everyone had a little part of, and it was an institute to itself. It also was the greatest job that I ever had, and it gave me a chance to meet a lot of people. And I wear this shirt proudly, and you'll see me with my other Joe's Twin Villa shirts on, like the one that Kevin had earlier. And I wear those around all over the world, and anywhere I've been, I've always got somebody who says, "I've been to that place," and it warms my heart. So. To get to the presentation here, this is my mother. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna show you, give you a little background about Joe's, where I live. Some of you don't know, and also talk about where some of my art comes from, especially the work of Joe's Twin Villa. So this is my mother, Deborah. We just lost her in December. Her last name is Rose, and so there's a lot of references to roses in my work because she was a rose. So. And then we'll go to the next one. She was a single child, and so was my father. This is my father here. And that's my mother's mother, Alice Bosfield, from West Medford, Massachusetts. And they're holding my sister Sharon at the time. My father was a career serviceman. That's why I was born in France. We lived in Germany, we lived in Hawaii, we lived in Texas, and then we moved back to the Cape. Got here about 5th grade, and I've been here ever since. It's just potential spam, so we won't worry about it. We'll just turn that right off, all right? Okay. Never knew I liked spam so much. Anyways, if we could. So my father, George, he was actually Paul Revere in the 1950 Centerville Parade. So when we talk about race relations in this day and age, I tell people quite often it's been going on for a long time. I also wonder if he was the only person who actually knew how to ride a horse at that time. Why else would he be Paul Revere? But it was kind of fun to talk to Avery Revere about my father being Paul Revere, which I think is really, really neat. In this picture, this is a painting that I did. The Kavanaughs in Centerville had multiple horses, and what I did was I just took the picture that my father had, and I wanted to make it symbolic, like a sign. I wanted people to notice this painting to be like a sign that actually just kind of said that this is George Diggs riding Star in circa 1950. This is my grandparents on my mother's side. As you can see, they were always dressed like this, just highly fashionable. She was a seamstress, worked for Filene's company in Boston, and he actually worked on the tunnels, the O'Neill Tunnel. Plus, he was very much involved with aeronautics. He liked avionics and stuff, so he was always working on small planes and finding himself flying around just local small planes around the area. This is a painting I did of her before she passed away. So this is Alice Bosfield. Her house was in West Medford, across the river from the Mystic River. So if any of you happen to be in Arlington or know Arlington real well and look across into West Medford, her house was undeniable. It was a pink house. It was very pink, and it was in years it changed, but it was always changed from, like, say, a mauve to a brighter pink, but it was always in the layers of pink always. And she dressed the same way all the time. She had the little foo-foo shoes, so she was always our runway model. So I painted her in this way just to kind of celebrate her life. This is on the other side. This is Joe Gomes and Travis Gomes. So Joe Gomes is the man who made Joe's Twin Villa, and Travis came here from Amherst, Virginia. She's from the hills of Virginia. Her first marriage was to my true grandfather, who I never met. He passed away before I was born. Was working in the Swickley, Pennsylvania area. And in Swickley, a lot of the Carnegies and the Mellons, they came from there. They had a home there. She was a day worker. We never could really find out whether or not it was the Carnegies or the Mellons. We didn't really know, but she ended up coming with them to Osterville, and that's when she met Joe Gomes. In the background is Joe's Twin Villa. So, and for those of you who had long roots at Joe's, you'd know that she would, if the band was going a little too long, she was the one who would walk in and just pull the plug. I mean, just, the music would be going, and all of a sudden, and then my grandfather would go, well, I guess it's over. It's time for everyone to leave. So she was quite something, if we could. There's Joe Gomes. Joe Gomes, he's the man I was named after, really only because our birthdays were close to each other, but it's an honor that I carry, and I carry very happily. I've always said that, excuse me a second, if I could be half the man that he could be, that I'd be very happy with my end results. Absolutely incredible man, great businessman, just a wonderful individual, please. So these are the cottages that he actually developed that I own now. So I'm the third generation of running these cottages. These are the reason why I get to paint. I'll never be rich, but I'll have this opportunity to because of my grandfather, to do what I want to do instead of what I have to do. Well, what I want to do is truly what I have to do, and it's because of this. So the cottages, no, that's fine. That's perfect, actually. This piece is called Generation, and this is a painting that just sold at Berta Walker's. And what this piece is about pushing the vision into the future, and at the same time kind of giving some homage to the people of the past. So you can see the people that are up front. I found some photographs of people who were there in the property years and years ago, back in the 40s. And so I just used those photographs. I brought them into this painting. And then I took the building in the very back and kind of thought, well, what would it look like in 25 years from now? And so I kind of aged it, and this is what I came up with. Just please. This is another one of the little cottages. I thought it'd be nice to show you guys what the property looks like. Now, I don't know, I'm sure all of you are familiar with, or you should be familiar with, the Darby property in Osterville. So it's the old bridle paths that the Kennedys used to own. Our bar abuts the property. It was folklore that my grandfather bootlegged liquor with Joe Kennedy. I say folklore because he would never actually tell us the story. And when we tried to get it out of him, he looked at us and said, "It's none of your business." So that's how that went. And as far as the property is concerned, whenever I asked him how he got the property, there was 3 little Indians. And I was like, yeah, and there was a teepee here and a teepee there and a teepee over there. So in other words, it's none of your business either. And we just kind of moved on. So these are some of the pieces of work that I do that's inspired directly from the property. For me, the property in itself is, it's magical. Whenever I have a bad day, all I have to do is walk out into my yard. It's just amazing. The ponds, Joshua's, Micah's pond, and Sam's ponds are all lined up. The 3 ponds are right there. When the day gets real bad, take a walk, and by the time you get back home, you realize how fortunate you are just to walk this earth. So I do paintings like this always just to kind of to give back to what I see visually. And that's the magic of Micah's Pond. I mean, it's just everywhere you look, I get these. This was a beautiful day, but one of those crazy, beautiful sunsets and rainbows that happen all the time. This painting, and oddly enough that this comes up at this time, the gentleman, I had a visitor today at my studio, and there's the people who purchased this piece of artwork. He actually came, he said he wanted to understand what motivated the painting because they just enjoyed it that much. And when I showed them I brought them down to Micah's Pond, they were like, oh, we get it. We totally get it. His name's Bob Ross, the owner of this piece. His name is Bob Ross, not the one with the afro, because he's no longer with us. So it's kind of cool to see. And he comes in and he gives you a little card and he says, the other Bob Ross. But that's it. So for those of you who can remember Joe's, this is it in its heyday. It was never a pretty joint, it was never the most posh place to go. It was always a local hangout, a local spot for just regular people to come in, and even not regular people to come in and act regular. So that was kind of like really our catch, that most people said, well, I don't quite understand it. And it's like, well, half the Kennedys really didn't want to be anybody else but a regular person. They'd come in with holy shirts and holy shoes to act like they were part of us, which we knew they could afford regular shoes, but they came in that way anyways. And there would be, the crowd would be absolutely incredible. From one side of the bar, from Hyannisport on one side to Osterville on the other side, and everybody else jammed kind of in between. From the blackest of black to the whitest of white, from the most Republican to the most Democrat. It was the absolute melting pot of Cape Cod. And it really it championed what I believe what Cape Cod truly is. Even though we're in this time of a lot of division, that place found a way to put the divisions away, and we all found a way just to get down with some good music. So we could. So as David alluded to earlier, I was at the Johnson, up in Johnson, Vermont, at the Vermont Studio Centers in 2018. It was really good to be able to wrestle with my thoughts and kind of try to find a place in my heart to put this business. Since it means so much to me, it was one of those things I realized that I have to work my way through in order just to be able to be a successful artist. So I started with this piece, and this piece is about 6 foot tall and 9 feet long. It's a tarp that I unrolled and just started painting. This led to pretty much 30 pieces of artwork. This is kind of indicative of the whole style that I went through. trying to show the golden beauty of the property in its decay, even trying to find a spot in my heart to understand that it was gone, but yet it will never be gone from me. But at the same time, kind of like putting the obvious stuff out there, that this is all about gold and silver, about the gem, about the beauty, about the richness of our experiences. This is called The Ghosts of Joe's. I have an honor that Mara Williams, now the chief curator at Brattleboro Museum, saw this piece and purchased it. She lived less than a mile down the street. The Williams family, I know a few of you remember and know who the Williams family is. They had a beautiful house on the corner of Main Street and East Bay Road that's now been changed into something different, but she never got a chance actually to come to Joe's. She used to hang out in the cemetery and listen to the music. And one day I said to her, "Why didn't you come in?" She said, "Because I wasn't old enough." I'm like, "So?" For those of you who didn't know, I mean, all you had to do was go to my grandfather and say that you were whatever age you wanted to be that day, and just shake his hand, look him straight in the face, and he'd go, "All right, okay, well, you'll get one beer." Those are the days when you could get away with that. Just to go, this one's called "She Was a Gem." It's just once again, just trying to show that beauty of Joe's, but also the transferal that it's going now. It's going back to dust, from dust to dust, that kind of idea. So the place was full of characters. This is Jester Harrison and his wife Marge. Jester was a famous actor, composer. He played in the sitcom Amen. He's got quite a long history in the entertainment world. And his wife Marge. When I came through this picture of the two of them, I was just stuck. It was an image that needed to be reproduced for two reasons. One was because they're timeless. It's just that he's so stoic and she's so big, and he's the anchor. And I just when I saw the photograph and I was thinking about the past, what Joe's has given me, how rich the history is, it reflected back to these two, because I realized that they were friends of my grandmother's, and so they would come down to the Cape to hang out with her. My grandmother used to always say that large women shouldn't wear print. I mean, I guess that was a thing back in the day. We know anybody wears anything they want now. But, and then, of course, the big hat on a big woman. She was like, you just don't do that. Well, Marge did what Marge wanted to, and Marge looked great at doing what she did. Please. And this is the painting that I did of Marge and Jester. I was very fortunate that it has a new home now. I got to see it yesterday in its new place up in Truro, and she's in a beautiful house, and it's just beautiful. It's really nice. So in the world of arts is no different than when you're trying to express yourself, which verbally I have an issue with. As you see, I struggle verbally, but visually is where my first language comes from. And once I realized that my first language is truly visual, that it made it okay for me to start pushing the boundaries on what I'm trying to say. This piece is called An American Tragedy. This is about James Byrd Jr. when he got dragged to death in Jasper, Texas. For us African Americans, there's times in our lives that we all have to kind of find, multiple times in our lives when we have to find a way to kind of deal with the pain and the aggravation of the sorrows and mistreatments that have gone down. In this situation, I read the article and just, like Joe's, I just had to do something. It just had to be done. So this was done prior to Joe's Twin Villa pieces. The rings that are in the bottom part of the piece, excuse me. See it here, these rings. They represent when I saw the photograph of his body parts being chalk-lined, because he was dragged to death. So, there was just body parts all over the street. was reading the article, and I'm in tears reading the article, and there was a moment that I actually saw the body kind of rise above the pavement, and I could actually see the figure. I couldn't see him together, but I could see the figure. I could see a soul. And I've been painting often about portals and about the transfer of beings and souls. And this was it was a poignant moment for me. So this became part of my symbols. Around the outside of those symbols, I used a torch and I just burned into the wood just to kind of get that smell and the feeling of things being burned, because his body was dragged on tar. And then the yellow, of course, is for the cowards that did this to him. And then on the bottom, I was trying to think at the time, was kind of like, all right, what's your biggest angst? What's your problem? And mine was bills. So I took all the bills that I had at the time that I couldn't afford, and I just I ran them through a shredder, and then I glued them on the painting, and then I painted over top of them so it has some nice texture to it. So it was pretty much just a painting of hard times and to deal with hard times. So that whole idea of chalk line stuff really started resonating with me, and I was like, okay, all right, where else are we going? And I was in Pennsylvania. I was a flight attendant for 15 years with my man back there, Kevin Barry. We worked for an airline, U.S. Airways. It's now American Airlines. And I was in a place called The Hill, getting my hair cut, and it's predominantly African-American owned in Pittsburgh. And the barber at the time said, I looked at him, I said, man, this place has got these beautiful Art Deco buildings. I mean, this place must have really been happening at some point. He said, oh yeah, he goes, trust me, when the Negro Leagues were here, we had 2 teams. And so our economy ran off of the Negro League. And then, and we were jamming. That's why all these buildings, we were partying every weekend. There was always a major event to go. So folks would dress to the nines. They'd come in and get their hair done. They come out, they would go to the game. The game would be incredible. And afterwards, there was always a soiree someplace. And so it was really the social network of the whole area. Well, I came home after that, and I was running through my father's yearbook, and I found this picture of Mr. Jones, the ball player, and got me thinking about how basically that now that when Jackie Robinson got into the big leagues, there has been no advancement truly of black people. I mean, don't get me wrong. There has, I think we're at 4 point or 5 point something in the league now. But there's a lot of men of color, but most of them are from the Latin League, which is, I mean, it's great to see men of color, but it really comes down to business. It's just a straight business deal. Had an opportunity to talk to the ownership of the Red Sox about this, and it was really interesting to hear their take on it, because basically he was saying, yeah, you have a valid point that, the African American, numbers are down, but there's a business behind this. So in other words, they went to Latin America to take advantage of them so that the league still is profitable. And if you still look at contracts, all your bigger contracts are always usually on white players. So I did this chalk line baller to kind of go back and say, okay, the ball players are dead too. So we just put big chalk line around it. There's a young man, it's this film, this tape, this doesn't really do it too much justice. There's a young man that's behind him in a kind of an aggressive stance. He's the future. And I've always believed in being positive, and I think that, what the idea on this is that, that there's a younger man in the future and then things will plow forward. There's a big head in the back of that, which actually is my uncle, who is one of our biggest thinkers in our family. So it's kind of like, all right, this is, it's a positive thing in the future. So within this series, I started doing these chalk line baller series. This collage and the next one that you'll see, I started using x-rays just to get a little further, for you to look a little deeper into it, a further kind of examination of the situation. On most of them, I used a legal piece of paper that I copied the photograph onto so that it was also looked at as a legal tenure, because knowing that everything was done legally. This isn't a personal thing. It's a legal thing. It's a money thing. But that's usually how most of this is done. It's not your fault. It's just the way it is because it's pushed on money. So I came up with this whole idea of using X-rays, and all the X-rays have cancer in them. So it's the cancerous idea of what's really chewing at our society is the idea behind these pieces. This piece is it's called Independence Day in Martha's Vineyard. Fortunate enough to go over on the 4th of July and hang out in Martha's Vineyard. Up in the Aquina area, we were up there putting clay all over our bodies and sitting out in the sun like the natives do. And I was told that we were not supposed to do that, but I found out afterwards. So, but we kind of hung out. It was myself, one of my best friends, and his grandson. And this was just strictly to pass the torch, to show this young man that this is one of the first places where African-American people could buy homes. So this is why independence is so important. As you can see, it's red, white, and blue in the background. Those are those shapes, once again, from the chalk line situation that I use as my symbol now, that you'll see kind of throughout a lot of pieces, and I still use it. So my political art goes in different directions, and this one was a little tongue-in-cheek on Stormy Daniels when she showed up. This is called Stormy Daniels, or Stormy Day. So this was, the orange would be Trump behind there, and just the kind of stormy weather that's kind of was forecasting the future. And unfortunately, we saw a lot of it. Then we got the Baldwin Barn across the street. So I want to start this off by saying, it was really, it's an honor that it's being recognized as it has been. And I think it's also, I want to thank the people in the village of Barnstable for really taking it under their wing and appreciating it as much as they have. I mean, I've heard a few kickbacks, and I understand we all have our different areas. But if you listen or if you read any of James Baldwin, you'll understand where it comes from. It's not coming from a heart or a hate spot at all. It's actually coming from a love spot. And I think the saying in itself says enough. And when I get the opportunity to do this, David calls me up and he says, Joe, I've got this wall. What do you want to do? And to his credit, he just absolutely gave me full control. I've had other opportunities to do other things, but unfortunately, usually it goes through committees, and then by the time it goes to everybody they don't trust exactly what's going to get up there, so they want to make sure they know everything's going to be okay before it happens. But good art doesn't happen like that. Good art happens, I believe, that a conscious artist understands the position that the artwork is going to be in, and then kind of tries to open up doors of conversations for the community that's going to see it. And that's exactly what this piece has done. So I thank you, David. People say, hey, Joe, it took a lot for you to get up and do it. No, it took a lot for the Munsells to lose friends, to go through the issues that they have gone through just because they have a bigger sight for everybody, a more all-inclusive world. My hats are off to you. I'd also be a little remiss if I didn't mention my co-partner in this, Jackie Reeves, who's an incredible artist in her own right, and it was a pleasure to be able to work with her on this project. I've got another project now that's starting at the community college, and if it wasn't for this piece, I don't think they would have given me the true open hand that they have. So thank you, bro. So I've got a couple of new projects coming up. My next, the one that I'm most excited about is from this young lady. Her name's Terry Lynn Carrington. Terry Lynn is a child prodigy drummer. She never graduated from Berkeley. The good ones don't graduate. They just go for a little while and they go out and do everything and then come back and teach. And that's what she does. She's the chair of the drumming department. She's a little younger than I am, but she has been teaching me about the arts since I met her, and I've known her since she was 6. Good. This is her now. She's incredibly passionate about what she does. She's just a force. I believe she's won 6 or 7 Grammys or whatever awards that musicians make. She's just a talented individual. But more importantly, when she was a young child prodigy and she was playing drums with Ella Fitzgerald and Buddy Rich and all the who's who and what's what, and I'm sitting there and watching this whole thing, and believe me, the little girl would get up and the drums were bigger than her, and then she would get up and just control the whole stage. And we were talking one day at Thanksgiving dinner, and I said, "Where are you going?" She goes, "I'm going home to practice." And I think she was like 10. I'm like, "Why would you go home and practice? I mean, we're all here, the family's here." She's like, "No, I got to go and practice because, I got a gig coming up, and I practice every day." And I was like, "Okay, all right, that's cool." She says, "Doesn't it suck?" And she goes, "It sucks usually when I start." She goes, "But then by the time I get it on, then I'm really into it and I like it, and I usually end up practicing a lot longer than I initially planned on it." And that always resonated with me. I realized, through athletics that, you have to do your calisthenics. I knew that. I know that, through athletics that you have to have like a regular practice. And then when art kicked in, they talked about the regular practice, but I didn't do it. But when I realized that what she has done to get to where she had been, I'm like, yeah, that's what you need to do. So I've used it. Now, as an older person, I've had conversation with her, and she says, "Well, I'm no longer a child prodigy. I'm no longer a child. And nobody knows who I am. So I have to reinvent myself." And I said, "Whoa," because she's, like I said, she's still, to me, she's all that. And she said, "Yeah, I've got to reinvent myself. I need to get my name back out there." Because truthfully, all of you guys should know who she is. I mean, she's that incredible, and she's a local Massachusetts girl. But she said to me, she said, "So what I do next is just as important as what I've always done." And I was like, ooh. Yeah, so anyways, I have a project going on with her. It will be shown in April if everything goes smoothly. It will be at the Henry Ford Innovation Museum in Detroit. It's a huge, there'll be music, art. It's going to be a very large show, and it should travel. The plan is they're trying to figure out how to make it travel. I've been fortunate enough, they've contracted me for 5 pieces of artwork to go into the show, and so that's what I'm working on now. My other influence, one of my other largest influences was Jack Whitten. For those of you who are not in the art world, you probably won't know who Jack Whitten is. But he was one of those characters that I met, and when I met him, I went, "Oh my, you're like my family. You could be my father's brother." The attitude, the swearing, the just outright boldness of when he was right about whatever, he'll just like let you know this is the way it is. Let me make that clear to you. The man was incredible. He's ICA, every major museum has a Jack Whitten piece. Got a chance to meet him at Brandeis. This is the two of us at Brandeis University, and him along with another gentleman, Mark Bradford, if you would. Well, this is one of Jack's works. It's kind of hard to see because he's an abstract artist, but he has many years, decades of painting, which he developed into this abstract artist. But he actually developed his own style of doing things by he had an Afro pick back in the day, decided to use that as what he called his applicator, and so it was a big rake that he would pour the binder of acrylic paint on the ground, and he would continue to rake it until it dried, and it would dry into little discs, and then you'd snap those discs and paint those discs and snap those off and then re-glue and apply them. So these are really three-dimensional paintings in their own right. They're truly three-dimensional. And this is kind of what I would, he made me think about paint weight. So this was one of my little pieces that was influenced by Jack. And then this guy, Mark Bradford, was another character that I ran into. I was fortunate to apply to Cal Arts. It was a Budweiser grant that was out back in the 80s, and if you applied with Budweiser, they would let you go to all the schools. They would send your application out to the top 5 art graduate programs like Yale, RISD, and Cal Arts. And so I got accepted to Cal Arts, and I went out and I met this guy, Mark Bradford, this tall black guy, and he was talking about his hoop skirt that he just made and how the professors just went crazy over it. And he's like, "Joe, you should come to Cal Arts. You don't have to paint. You can just, we talk conceptual art here, we talk postmodernism, you talk art, you know. I'm like, yeah, but I'm an East Coaster. He's like, yeah, what does that mean? I go, we put paint on a canvas. That's what we do. It's not, we don't just talk about it, we actually do it. And he's like, well, he goes, well, you can still do it here, but you don't have to. That's the cool thing, you don't have to. And I was like, yeah, but Mark, I need to. And he's like, yeah, I don't know. So he showed me this whole hoop skirt thing, excuse me. So basically it was a Laker girl top, and then it went down to the big hoop dress, and it was all in Lakers colors, and he taped it, and he's filming himself trying to play basketball, falling all over the place and tripping on this. It was absolutely hilarious. It was a great film, and it shot him right up into stardom. I had no clue, none at all. So I was at the ICA with my group of artists who were here, right here at the schoolhouse, about 5 of us, and I'm looking through a book, and I opened up the book, and there it is, Mark Bradford's Hoop Dress. And I looked at my friends, and I went, holy crap. I missed the boat on that one, didn't I? And they went, yeah, you missed the boat, buddy, you know, but I'm okay. But Mark Bradford's one of my favorites, and this is the work that I did in response to the way that he worked. We can move on. So there's other artists like Huey Lee Smith. He has this way of actually painting and kind of keeping a solitude, a certain quietness to the soul. So he's painting the individuals, but he's also, he's got these indefinite walks, or you're climbing over you have to get over a wall, or there's a ladder. There's always the obstacles that are in front of you, but it's a solo road. It's a quiet solo road. This is how he painted. And so I understand that and appreciated it and want to emulate it in my work. So I've been working on these roads now. And this piece showed in Boston at La Montagne Gallery, and of the figuratively Provincetown artist show that we had. It just came down about a month ago. So I found a group of my artist buddies were all not from the United States. It's just, you know, when I was looking for my home, I was looking around trying to find people who I connected with. And so Mata was one of them. And then I found out that Mata was here on the Cape, and he worked with a lot of other artists. So that was bizarre in itself. And to know that I was kind of summoning in somebody who's already been here. This is my idea of what I think good painting is. This is actually his painting, not mine. When you can paint this loosely and freely, but at the same time, it's very direct and concrete. It's like you don't know what you're looking at, but you know you're looking at something. And this is my adaptation of that idea. Much more naturalistic. I deal with the light that's similar to the light of Innis. I love the soft yellow light that Innis landscapes have to offer. So I didn't try to go away from what I do. I just tried to find what he did in what I do. And then the Windward Walls down in Miami. If you ever get a chance to get down to Miami, there's a whole street art scene going on with the Windward Walls. This is a whole town of nothing but huge murals. And it's really impressive because you can see these things as you come into town. That you can see them from miles away, and it's literally the whole town. So, and then my trip to Cuba. You know, Cuba, my heart goes out for the Cuban people right now, of what they're going through. I find that when I was there, I was actually there when the embargo, when Trump said, okay, you know, we're not doing business with you guys anymore, which was a little nerve-wracking when you're the American there, you know. But you know, the part that was really amazing was that the people of Cuba, when we talked to them, they were like, oh yeah, but you're not your government. They're going to be gone in 4 years. You're just you're like us. And I was like, whoa. They have an understanding of things. Their education level was so high. Their understanding of things were just very, very, very deep. And it was nice to be able to have the conversation with them and have them actually understand that we're not here to do anything. We weren't there. We were actually there on an art exchange to show and actually help them out with their museum. And it was just an amazing exchange, and it's a wonderful place. I hope that they get it together, and I want to go back there and spend more time and have the artwork show it. So, yeah, this is Wolf Lamb. We'll scoot past Wilfredo if you don't mind, but this is one of my pieces that kind of emulates what I saw down in Cuba. Just the freedom to put things where you want to and how you want to do it without any holding anything back. So then there's always a few that you just go like, wow. So Cerveno Moreno was just one of my favorites that I found in Cuba, though you can see the dates from 1923 to 1981, but as contemporary as anything that I do, and very much just forward thinking in the style of painting. So, and this is one of my Joe's pieces. So there's a certain amount of just feelings that I hope that you guys understand that goes on with these paintings, that's the reason why the connection between the Cuban painters and my connection worked out so well. That old decay next to new with graffiti. We want to always look at it and go ugly, but then when you really look at it, it's beautiful. So I like to bring the old with the new and bring a little decay in there, and then also show the shiny. This is Joe's once again. Joe's returning. And then it comes down to craftsmanship. I mean, it always comes down to craftsmanship before it's all said and done. It's cool. It's great when you see people work from hands. These are the wrought iron work in Cuba is just absolutely insane. Every window is covered with some type of wrought iron, and the patterns are all different. And then when you look at the doors and the archways, the way that everything was painted, it's just the hand is everywhere, and it's just beautiful. And then the passion. We were listening. We were at this is the bar that the great writer there, Hemingway, had. I guess Moby Dick is where the Old Man from the Sea is where he sat in the corner and started penciling the Old Man in the Sea in this bar. So we went there, and they, part of their kind of tourist thing is they have this little band, and this is one of our members that came with us, and she was engaged with this man who was just playing the music right to her, and you could just see, the passion, the love is just there. I had a chance to sit in with the band, which was really cool. They let me play the congas, which we didn't put on this one because that was horrible. And then, folks, life and death is something that we all deal with. And to see how they honor their life and to see how they honored their dead was just as important. So I wanted, I actually took this photograph because this is something that I don't know how this is ever going to work into my work, but at some point I would love to find a way to make this feeling kind of come back with a little respect. So I do these collaborations, and I'm sure that many of you have heard of Carl Lopes. If you haven't, he was one of our teachers at Barnstable High School, a retired teacher at Barnstable High School, and an incredible teacher, and a wonderful man in his own right. Carl and I have been working on this piece for over 6 years. Yeah, 6 years. I also teach. I teach some young youth. Actually, they're incarcerated youth up at the Bad Boy Camp in Brewster. So I go up and I teach them art when they'll listen, and we sit down and we collaborate together. I took this large piece of canvas and we put it down and I got some tongue depressors and some different things. And I said, what we're going to do? We're just going to glue things down. We're going to write notes, and then we're going to talk about what we're doing. So this piece, this project, took a turn that was just this was one of those turns that you can't make up. These are kids that have gone through a myriad of issues, and they come from different financial backgrounds, and most of them have broken homes. None of them really trust adults or anything to do with any authority whatsoever. And we put this piece of paper, put this canvas down, and we played the game kind of similar to when Warhol and Basquiat went at it, and one was crossing one's work out and painting over top of it. And so I gave the squeegee to one kid, and I said, hey, whatever you want to do. If you want to get rid of something, get rid of it. If you don't, it's all right. So he went right over to the teacher's work and just erased everything that the teacher had to do. And the teacher was like, wow, I worked on that for an hour. And he was like, yep, gotta go. I'm like, all right, great. And little boy long, I gave the teacher the squeegee and I said, it's your turn. And she went right over to his work and just put a big X right across it. And he looked at me, he's like, wow, she can't do that. I'm like, of course she could. Did you think about what you did? You set this up. You set this up on her, and now she's doing it to you. This is life. You know, you do something bad to somebody, of course they're gonna come back to you. This is no different. We're just doing a painting, but this painting reflects what we do in life. So our conversation from there opened up. And it was the first time I think because these kids are incarcerated, it was the first time I think that the inmates and the actual teachers and the staff had a real heart-to-heart conversation about what was and what isn't important in their lives. It's at Representative Kay Kahn took it into her office at the State House, and that's where it's been housed ever since. My biggest pride of that was we got a chance to bring those young men up to the state office, a place that none of them wanted to go to. Not one of them wanted to talk, but when you saw them all walk into the place, the amount of pride that they had, and then opened right up and started talking about it, was an amazing day. So I do these other ones. This is a photograph with Grace Hopkins, and then I grabbed my pen and started drawing over top of her photographs, and we come up with these little wacky, little weird things. And this is with her father. Her father, Bud Hopkins, is passed now, but he was a fabulous artist in his own right. And he gave the piece on the right, the red piece is his, the yellow piece is mine, and I put them together to make this collaboration. The artists that are right here at the schoolhouse, we get together. This piece was made right at the schoolhouse. We call ourselves Puppet. We might throw something out on the web every once in a while when all of us get together. We'll get together and have a few beers and shuck some oysters and pull out a piece of painting and some art and make some art. And it's a little close-up of it. And then during COVID, we spent a lot of time alone. What I ended up doing, we had our own little gang of COVID people. My girlfriend, my next door neighbor Tina, and us, we just sat down and we started making artwork. That was our way of kind of working our way through this whole COVID situation to try to keep some sanity. And the pieces turned out pretty exciting too, so I was very happy with it. And this is just my response to COVID. So I just started painting these trying to wonder what the cells look like, and you saw the pictures all the time, and I was like, well, you know, what would happen if they got caught up into grass, and what happens here? And so I had some fun with just actually putting pieces together. So back to Cuba, there's a little graffiti thing going on that I have going here. So the Cuban graffiti, it was functional, but at the same time had a little bit of sense of humor to it. So this is at the fort, actually. So this is the Fort of Cuba when you come in. And this is where they would actually have put rifles out to shoot people. So, you know, incomers, and I just saw this, I'm like, okay, the only place this rivals is New York. And this is New York. So when I saw this piece of graffiti, it was back in a corner of an alley. And when I saw it, I was like, oh, who goes there with the broken heart and the bandages? I just thought it was fantastic, so I took the photo of it. And then back to Cuba with their color and expressionness. I just thought the expression of the colors and the way that these things moved around was just special to itself. And then I go to New York, and it's different, but it's the same. But as a Barnstable guy in New York, and I saw Barnstable down the right-hand side of this piece of graffiti, I was like, I'm in. I love it. So I tell you, I bleed red. You know, I played team sports for Barnstable High School. I love my village. I love my town. And so when I saw this, I was like, ooh, yeah, this is great. And the big, sexy music didn't hurt anything. So this is a painting that I did of the Cuban market. I was trying to get that freneticness of the market. And so it's a very kind of busy, kind of agitated painting. So that was pretty much my response to my Cuba trip. This is called Soul Spaces. This was in the last show at Berta Walker. So when the winter time comes to Micah's Pond, the pond opens up and the views open up, and I have these big, vast areas. And so a lot of what I paint is the actual movements that I see out between the trees. That's Soul Spaces. I'm going to give you guys a minute here to read this. This was on the back of my grandfather's card. Joe Gomes meant the world to me, and that's why. I think so. That's going to conclude this part of the presentation. I think there's going to be some question and answers. I want to thank you once again for your patience for this to get this going. Go ahead, Tom. You got a question? Go ahead, shoot it.
I wish you showed the paintings that Gordon and Lisa Williams have, the orange ones.
Oh, well,
I would like to see those too.
thank you. Well, maybe we'll have another opportunity. Originally, we originally planned on Miss Nancy Cardwell. Dr. Cardwell and I are working on another project, and we originally were planning on this being the unveiling of that project. With COVID, we weren't able to do that. So maybe in the next year, when we have our next one, we can show you that project, and I'd be really interested to hopefully get that out to you guys. It has to do with the Cape Verdean and native people of Cape Cod. So if we're fortunate enough to get it all together by then, we look forward to coming back here and giving you guys a little a preview of what's going to show with that. But that was our original one. This has gone back. That's why we've gone back now to talk a little bit about Joe's twin villa and mostly about my art, because that's where my heart lies. Yeah. Thank you. Shoot, Dave.
I just wanted to point out to everybody that, we've been to your studio. And these paintings that you have up there are this big on the wall, but they're massive. Some of them are 5, 6, 8, 10 feet tall.
Yeah.
Some of them are, these little pictures are huge, and the scale is hard to depict in something like this. So
Yeah.
It's impressive.
Thank you, Dave. Thank you. Yeah, he got tired. He was snoring before it was all over. He was back in the back. But truthfully, when they came to visit, it was just a magical day, a night. We sat and we talked art, we talked politics, we talked differences, we talked about our past, we got reacquainted. We didn't run in the same circles in high school, so it was really cool to get this reacquaintance. Then my mother's in hospice and his wife shows up at our door. It was just magical, it was wonderful. Thank you so much. It was just, so our village is really our village. It's like I can tell you stories that could tell you the opposite side of the beauty. I'm not here today to talk about that. I would rather talk about the beauty of the beauty with you guys. We have work to do. I mean, that's just all there is to it. We have work to do. And it's not my place to teach, because I'm not a teacher, I'm a painter, and I hope if you can learn something through a painting, great. If you can't, you can't. I'll try. But on the other side of it, it is my opportunity, it is my platform to go ahead and put the information out for you and to be able to try to explain it in a way that maybe might make some sense to you. So I hope that, that if you have questions about any of this stuff, I don't care whether it's Joe's twin villa or whether it's being black on Cape Cod or or what's it like to be in Austerville, because trust me, it's different. I tell people I'm from Austerville, they go, what? It's like, yeah, there's one street, and it's the affordable street, and they're trying to put more affordable homes on it. But that's another story. But that's what we deal with here. But we still find a way to make things work. We still find a way to make it to Four Seas ice cream and love that ice cream every year, no matter what. I mean, that's what we do because we're Cape Codders. I've never really experienced the ocean part of Cape Cod. I've always considered myself an insider when it comes to Cape Cod. So for me, when working at Joe's Twin Villa, I had friends of mine who came in. Well, they weren't friends at the time. They came in and they were talking about this, that, and the other. And they said, "Well, Joe, you know how it is. We're on the boat. We're going over to Martha's Vineyard. We're going over to the Black Dog. We'd have some lunch." And I was telling my friend over here, Steve, look, I looked at him. I said, "I've never been on a boat. I've never sailed. What are you talking about? You know how it is, Joe." No, Joe doesn't know how it is. You guys know how it is because you sail every week. Joe goes to work. That's what I do. So next Wednesday, I said, "I'm on it." And then there we were, out there smoking cigars and cruising over to Martha's Vineyard in a little 22-foot sailboat that was absolutely fantastic. And I understood everything that they were talking about when I got back. The next time when they were talking about, engine or no engine? No engine. No engine. Are you kidding me? That was just wonderful to be able to float across the water like that. Yeah, he said, "I thought you'd be on my side." And we talked these things over. Our bond is still there till today, which is amazing. And that has nothing to do with anything else except for they were willing to reach out their hands and say, "Hey, come with us." And I was willing to say, "Yeah, let me take you up on that offer." So that's what we are. That's what I see. That's what I see in Cape Cod. That's what I see us as people. All right, I'm going to get off my soapbox. Anybody got anything to say? Yes, Sharon.
I just want to know, what medium do you like to use the most and why?
The one I can afford, but it's usually oil. It's usually oil. And the reason why I like oil is because it takes a lot longer to dry and I can play more games. And I'm a reworker, so I start with it and I go back and I sand things off and I keep reworking and reworking. I'll even go back and pull pieces that I've had for like 10 years, and I'll go back and repaint them. So I'm a little neurotic when it comes to that kind of, so oil is my preferred. I'm trying to learn how to paint with acrylic because it's water-based and it's better for you. Well, they say, they don't really know, but we think that it might be better for you. And so I'm trying to think that way, but there's nothing like oil. There's really nothing like it, so oil's my favorite. Ladies, thank you guys. I believe we have ice cream, so.